number of firms. But then remember that in terms of products, they are homogeneous, very good, identical, or they are same. But here we say now slightly differentiated products. Okay, let me give you an example. How many of you like to eat out? Okay, very good. So what kind of restaurant do you go there? American, Southern, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, Mediterranean, seafood, all that. So all those are food, but they are all specialized. Okay, like for example, Mexican food might be a little bit more spicy. So that, there you go, that's your differentiated products. How many of you go see doctors? Once in a while. Once in a while, okay. Now when you go see doctor, you don't just go see doctor. You find out a little bit. What's your problem? Which part of your body hurt? If it is your teeth, you go see dentist. Because when your teeth are hurting, you do not want to go see an oncologist who treats cancer, right? If you have a sports injury, who do you go see, Brianna?
Trainer.
Trainer, okay. You go see an orthopedic surgeon, something like that, specialist, or sports medicine, something like that. Because that's what they specialize in, because you have a knee injury, you have a shoulder injury, and things like that. So, you know, there are various specialization, various specialty in doctor's business. You need to find out, they're all doctors, but then they treat different parts of your body. If your visions are blurred, you need to go see eye doctor. You go to a different type of doctor, right? So that's your monopolistic competition. There are many firms out there, but then they offer, you know, slightly different, differentiated services in this case. Okay, very quickly, strategic alliance. I think I'll skip this one. This is not in your book. Now that just extra. We're a little bit out of time because I took so much time talking about it. So let's get to the main part here. The main part here is, why don't you turn to your book where you see two diagrams, side by side. And these two are very important diagrams. Everybody got it? Page 195, 196? This one right here. Straight line, horizontal and downward sloping. Everybody got that? Andy, what page is it? Page 197? Okay. Everybody see that graph? That's it. That's two graphs explain everything. Now, the one on the right-hand side is a downward sloping demand curve. So a perfectly competitive firm faces a perfectly elastic demand curve for its product. This is, we've done this before. Remember that straight line, perfectly elastic demand curve? Firms take price as given, supply and demand curve intersect because remember you have the hook. The hook is your, anybody remember what I call a fishing hook? Here's your demand curve for marginal revenue, perfect competition. So anybody remember this hook I'm talking about? What's the name we gave? Kink? No, this is not the kink. This is the margin.
That's art, isn't it? Art.
So this is a supply curve for the perfect competition. So remember that's P equals to MC. It's right here. That's your profit maximizing quantity. That was the most important thing in that chapter. If you get nothing, at least you got that. I'm sure we asked questions like that on the test. So this is probably the most important one. P equals to MC is your profit maximizing quantity criteria. Okay, so we're still talking about perfect competition, where your demand curve is perfectly elastic. And it doesn't make sense to increase or lower the price because it doesn't help. Remember we talked about when you try to increase the price, what happened? Your customer will say goodbye to you because you're a price taker. They go somewhere else where the prices are lower because there are a lot of them out there. I don't have to go to this hairstylist if she's raising it 10% or 20% of the haircut price. You know, you go to another one because more or less they have similar prices there. But if you lower the price, you're not making profit. So there's no incentive to lower or increase the price, but stay more or less the same along the market demand curve. If a haircut typically is $20 for women, so it's somewhere around there, or $10 for guys, stay around that price range. Now, we're moving on to that downward sloping demand curve, which is the case of an imperfect competition. So now you're going to see that difference here. In the case of imperfect competition, the demand curve is going to look like that, a typical downward sloping demand curve like you learned in chapter 3. Now, not only that, you also have a marginal revenue that's shaped like that. Okay, I'm going to explain that in a little bit. So this is perfect competition, this is the imperfect competition. Straight away you see the difference. What's the difference? Demand curve is downward sloping instead of perfectly elastic or horizontal. And not only that, you also realize the marginal revenue is like that, below that demand curve. I'll explain this a little bit more detail. But over here, the demand curve is also a marginal revenue. They coincide, okay? So that's a big difference here. So graphically, you have seen the difference by looking at the graph here, but let's try to explain this. If you charge a price different from competitors, it could be advantageous. So what this is saying is, like a cell phone company under oligopoly, if you want to charge a higher price or a lower price, you can't do that because of the downward sloping demand curve. Because if you charge a lower price, you might capture a bigger share of the market. For cell phone company, for example, because you're competing with this other few rivals out there, okay? So now it has market power, key term, underline that term if you could. It has some sort of market power or the ability to raise the price of the good without losing all its sale. Now, whereas in the case of perfect competition, you're at the mercy of the market, you're a price taker. Remember, I wrote all this down before, you have no market power whatsoever. Because you're just a small drop of water in a big bucket of water. Remember the expression I used. So, you don't have incentive to raise the, because if you try to raise the price, you would lose all your sales in the case of perfect competition. But not so over here. Because over here, if let's say you raise the price, point A, point B, okay, so let's say this is $2, this is $1. So if you raise the price under the perfect demand curve, basically you sell less. It's what this is saying, but not so over here. Because this one has no market power, and this over here has market power. Not only that, we call these people price maker. They make the price. They're not price taker anymore. They're not passive anymore. They're active in making market price decision for your consumers. Okay, so there's two graphs, and then I'm going to come back and explain a little bit more details now. Now, why is that? Let's talk about monopoly next. Now, the monopoly obviously has market power. Do you think anybody could beat Microsoft today? I mean, some of you could say, oh yeah, I'm going to beat Microsoft when I graduate with UNCP degree. Yeah, I got a degree, so let's go beat Microsoft. No way. Well, you may be able to, but remember they have been around a long time. They have first mover advantage. They already crossed all the cost curve, all that, So it's just a small player. You just started out. You're not going to beat them. It's going to take a while. It's going to take innovation. I'm not saying you can't, okay? Because by me saying you can't, that means I limit your ability to innovate and to be creative. But it's not easy. That's all I'm saying. So where does the source of the market power comes from? How come monopoly has market power? How come oligopoly has market? Well, actually, we talk specifically about monopoly here. Exclusive control over input. Wow. That's the case of De Beers Diamond Company in South Africa. They are world number one in exporting diamond and mining diamond. And why? Because the mine is just right next to them. They set their office right there, and that's where they mine the diamond. So that's what it is, exclusive control over inputs, the mine, the diamond mine. Almost, well, not quite 100%. There are other places in the world that produce diamond, but majority of it comes from South Africa. Patents and copyright. Good example would be pharmaceutical company. How many of you have to go to drugstore sometime, get your prescription, like CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, what have you? So now, if you have insurance, and then you're paying something like $50 to $100 for your drugs, talking about prescription drugs, not cocaine, okay? Right. So, what's wrong? How come you're paying so much? You're paying so much because this company, the patent has not expired. Okay, so for example, like cancer curing drugs. Anybody heard about cancer curing drugs? Raise your hand. Some of you do, okay. It's kind of a joke because, well, you have all kinds of cancer, right? So this pharmaceutical company like Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Merck, all these big pharmaceutical company out there, they usually have research and development that spans years of research and development trying to invent these cancer curing drugs. You think it's easy? Cancer is #1 killer or #2 killer today in America. So just imagine if you happen to be successfully come out with a drug like that, you'd be rich overnight. I mean, everybody would want that drugs, right? And it's going to cost a lot because with all those years of research and development that put into it, the government is going to give them a patent. Usually that lasts for 25 years. During these 25 years, they are protected. That means generic market cannot come in. They're being protected. And that's why you're paying so much for some of these drugs that are patented. Now, once a patent expires, beyond that 25 years, and they allow the generic market to come in, then that's when you get your drug to be like $10, $12, because it's a generic. We see the difference here. So to some extent, we say these pharmaceutical drugs, they are given patent because they have monopoly over the invention of that first drug. That's what you're paying so much today. And that's a good one to do your topic on, if that's your passion, if you find interest in that. Copyrights is like your book, your music, CD, stuff like that. Michael Jackson's CD, copyrighted, right? Of course. Otherwise, you hear it, you see it everywhere. So it has to be copyrighted to protect the original inventor. Government license or franchise, some of the government business, they ask for bid for, they ask for license. For example, like garbage collection in the city. So you have to bid your contract with the government and see who gets it. So whoever gets it, government let you have it, then you will be the guy who pick up the, garbage for the neighborhood. Economies of scale is what I call natural monopolies. Okay, with that, let me see. So that's what we do. So let's go to this graph in your page. Turn your page. You see this graph right here. Now, what is natural monopoly? Natural monopoly is something that we say you don't have to force it to happen. It's very natural. For example, like if I were to ask you, how many of you live in Pembroke now? Apartment or whatever. Okay, you all agree Pembroke is a small town, right? Okay, most of you agree. So do you think it pays to have two utility company and water company in Pembroke? Probably not. One is enough because you don't have a big market base out there. So that's called natural monopoly. Now if you go to big cities like Charlotte, you got more competition there because the market base is bigger. So you might have more than one utility company or more than one water company because they're competition. But in a small town like Pembroke, you know, you don't need but one utility company. You don't need but one water company. So there you go, that's what we call natural monopoly. So when we describe the term natural monopoly, we look at this one on the right-hand side in your book. Your average total cost, remember our soup bowl, the U-shaped one? We're only showing you the left-hand side of the bowl. So your average total cost is going to be declining as you produce more and more. And indeed so. If you get into any business later after you graduate from UNCP, you know, you're gonna do business. So at the beginning, the cost is gonna be very high because you're learning how to do the business. And then slowly over time, as you produce more and more units, you know, you learn how you're seeing your average total cost coming down. Very good. And this is your marginal cost. So the natural monopoly has this feature. That is, your average total cost is dropping. But then it always, it's going to be asymptotic, mathematical term, towards your marginal cost right there. So here, over here is your total cost, which consists of fixed cost and your variable cost. So up here, it's fixed cost is your, what we call like your intercept term. Remember $40, the example that we did before? And then after that, it goes up according to the quantity. The higher the quantity, the more you produce, your marginal cost or your variable cost is going to go up. Remember, you have to hire more workers to produce the computers in the example we gave last time. So now, your M is your marginal cost or your variable cost. And Q, well, let me write this down because I think this is quite kind of abstract if I talk like that. So your total cost consists of fixed cost and MQ. This is basically your variable cost. Okay, it's the same thing. So write this down. This will help you. So then what you do is divide everything by Q. See what I'm doing? Divide everything by Q, then this becomes average total cost. This becomes average fixed cost. Second term here becomes average fixed cost. And then you cross this out, Q and Q, so this becomes your N, which in essence is your, what we call average variable cost, which is also your marginal cost. So that's what it is saying. Because of this AFC, which is the same as F divided by Q, so you could see that as you produce more and more unit, your fixed cost is going to be, your first term is going to be asymptotic, and then your M is actually below it. So what all that this is saying is that over time, as you produce more and more, your average total cost is going to drop. And that's the case to describe a natural monopoly. You're the only monopoly, and over time, as you produce more and more, your average total cost will drop, but it will not cross over to your marginal cost. It's kind of like getting closer to marginal cost. Can you write this down? I think we'll ask you that question on the test. So that's an important one for natural monopoly. So let's go back to that. So another term we use is economy of scale to describe what is natural monopoly. So I will talk about it more in the next slide. But let's look at what is network economy. Now, how many of you have used fax machine before? Okay, some of you have, very good. So let's just say if you are the only person in the world who has a fax machine, does it work?
No.
No. If you're the only one in the world who has a Facebook account, does it work? What's the point of having Facebook account? You want to connect with your friends and family, correct? What's the point of, so there has to be a network in order for it to be valuable. What's the point of having the one and only email account in the world? Unique, so unique. But does it help you at all? No. until everybody has got onto your network. The more the better, right? Then you have a network of people that you connect with, like your friends and your family. So then it adds more value to it. So this so-called network economy is another term for it, is what we call bandwagon effect. So the more people who get on it, the more value it is. So that's kind of like a new thing, you know. So then you have more market power, like people like LinkedIn. What do they have now? Pinterest? How many of you are in Pinterest? Okay. I heard it's a ladies' thing, you know. Ladies are more interested in Pinterest than guys for some reason. And you have, what else do you have? Facebook and some other things out there. But anyway, so that's it, you know. The reason you get into it is because your friends or families are in it. So you want to share things, you want to share pictures and things like that. You want to share your food, you know. If you're eating a very good dishes, you know, you want to take a picture and share with the rest of the world, yeah.
So would you consider network economies to be kind of like trends?
A trend?
Yeah, would you consider them trends? Cause like
Can be, yeah, it would apply to a trend, yes. As long as you have the more people, and the feature has to be, when more people get onto it, it becomes more and more valuable, the products. And Facebook is not very popular, well, I mean, it is very popular now, but when a new product comes out, or service come out, at the beginning it's not popular. The reason that it becomes popular is because you got more people who get on to the network. Okay, so we have three types of definition to describe economies of scale. The first one is called constant return to scale. I'm gonna summarize what you write here, so please take note. Constant return to scale, I'm using short form, is if input goes up by 10%, output goes up by 10% also. So that's your constant return to scale. Okay, and next one is called increasing return to scale. I'm following the notes over here there by giving you an example. If your input goes up by 10%, if you're producing baseball bat, so you have to put in input like workers and what have you, titanium, whatever material you use to make the baseball right now, and your output will go up by more than 10%. Is that good? Is that good or bad? If you use only 10% of input, but then your output is go up by more than 10%. That's good, yes. Be happy. The other one is not in your book, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Decreasing return to scale, and I think now you know how to define it. If input goes up by 10%, and what's going to happen to output?
It goes down.
No, it will still go up, but by less than 10%. And that's the situation you don't want to get in. So this is when you're kind of like neutral. Okay? So all those phases help, because then you know which one is positive, negative. With economies of scale, average cost of production falls sharply as output increases. So that was the graph we just looked at. There's a high startup cost and low marginal cost. You think about Microsoft. Well, never mind about Microsoft. Let's give another example about telecommunications. Phone company. Now, you know, if you go to other third world countries, you see that telecoms is usually a monopoly in most of these countries. Well, even if you look at US, historically, most of you have heard about Bell, right? Named after Alexander Bell, person who invented the phone. So you know that Bell has many baby bells, what they call baby bells. You heard about Pacific Bell, Northeastern Bell, Southwestern Bell, because the Department of Justice make them breaks up into little company because they're getting too big. They don't want monopoly, they say break it up. So let's have Pacific Bell, let's have Northeastern Bell, let's have, in this part of the country, Southeastern Bell. So they break them up into different entities. And that is to discourage monopoly. Okay, because when you have monopoly, then, typically the prices are very high. Because you're at the mercy of the only provider. They say, we're the monopoly, we're the biggest shark in town, take it or leave it. Well, look at how much you're paying for Microsoft operating system. Do they believe in charity? Yes, they do. But they also believe in revenues and making profits. So you're paying a lot, and because they are monopoly. Okay, so next we want to go back to these two diagrams. Okay, the original diagram that I drew with a straight line on there. So marginal revenue, I'm going to define it very quickly. This is a change in firm's total revenue that results from one unit change. Now everybody remember that since day one in our class. Okay, remember I wrote down this equation? What's marginal revenue of the first unit? It is the total revenue of one unit minus total revenue of 0 unit. What's the marginal revenue of the second unit?
Total revenue of 2 units.
Total revenue of 2 units, very good, you're using it correctly. Minus total revenue of producing only 1 unit, and so on and so forth. Remember that. Very good. So that's what your marginal revenue is defined as. So next, we look at monopoly. So remember a while ago, I draw that diagram. We say that monopoly has downward sloping demand curve. This is your price, this is your quantity. That's it. Very simple. The marginal benefit of selling an additional unit is usually less than the market price. Okay, and that's because, remember, I have another line that looks like that. In fact, if this is 50, this intercept term is 50, this is half of it. So this will be 25. Where the marginal revenue intersect with the horizontal line. That's typically what it is, okay? Note that monopolies can only sell an additional unit if it cuts price on all units they sell. So in other words, that's because of the downward sloping demand. Okay? If you want to sell more units, you have to cut price because then you're moving more towards the downside of this. If you want to sell maximum, then you have to give it for free, but you're not going to. So the more you drop the price, the more you can produce more. And that's because of the nature of the demand curve, downward sloping. So that's in theory. So next, let's look at this example here. We're going to figure out the relationship between marginal revenue and the demand curve. Okay, so everybody see that this is your demand curve downward sloping, the green line, and this is your A right here. So if you were to draw a marginal revenue line across, where do you think it would be intersecting at? What unit would it be intersecting? Very good. Somebody is listening. 4, because 4 is half of 8. Very good. If we draw a line here intersecting, it will be somewhere here, and it will be 4, because 4 is 1/2 of 8. So remember that. And the other thing that you should know is the marginal revenue. Write this down, please. The slope of the marginal revenue is twice as much as the slope of the demand curve. And that's basically why you have half the numbers here. So when you take ECN 3010 for business student, that's a course that you have to take calculus before you can take ECN 3010. You know, I try to tell my students over the years, once you have taken 2020, it's good that you take calculus and go ahead and take that 3010. Well, I see a lot of students wait till their senior year to take 30-10 because of that calculus prerequisite that they have to take. But, 30-10, which is managerial economics, it's one of the required course for business students. It's very much related to 2020. So when you take ECN 30-10, this is the kind of thing that you will prove mathematically, by using calculus. But we're not gonna do calculus today because it's not required for this course. But this course is a prerequisite to take ECN 30. Okay, let's take a look here. So now, remember how to calculate total revenue? Anybody? Give me an equation.
Total cost.
Revenue.
Total revenue minus total cost.
That's
Wait,
profit.
Andy, yes?
Total revenue?
No. Yeah, total revenue. How do you do it?
I think like total profit minus total cost.
Right,
Or
or
price
you
times
do
quantity.
price times quantity. That's it. Okay? Remember my example about if the price of a CD is $1, you go to Walmart, you buy 10. What's the total revenue for Walmart? P times Q. Okay? So what's the total revenue right here? At this point?
12.
Very good. Price is 6, Q is 2, 6 times 2 is 12. Got it? Very good. If price is $6, your total revenue is 12. If price is 5, your total revenue is 15. Agree, everybody? You agree because you see that thing up there. So let me stretch you a little bit here. Now, next we want to do marginal revenue of the third unit. Okay, let's do one more here. So the marginal revenue of the third unit will be the total revenue of 3 units minus total revenue of 2 units. We know that the total revenue of 3 units will be, this is 3 units, right?
$15.
Yep, that would be 15. We just done that. Total revenue of 2 units is 2 times 6. This is 12, which is
$3.
$3. Very good. Most of you could calculate that. But what is the significance of doing this calculation? That is, $3 is less than $5. Because that's your third unit there. Third unit, which is your P3. The price when the unit is 3. So at the third unit, right, you could see that your price, which is $5, it's greater than your marginal revenue, which is $3. That's the point we're trying to make. So in other words, except for that point up there, 8, where you originate both demand curve and marginal revenue, let's put an 8 up here. Where they are the same, because they originate from that same point. And then what happens is they diverge out, right? Okay, so every single point, whether it's first unit, second, third, fourth, fifth, the demand curve is always above marginal revenue. Correct? Everybody got that? Okay, so that's what it is saying, except for that unit up there. So then next, you could draw a line like that. In fact, you could draw a line like that. If you look at the book, does the book show you that? Yeah, let's go all the way to that figure 7.4. What page is that? Somebody tell me.
203.
Okay, this page here, everybody, see my book? Okay, so this is a page where you see that marginal revenue actually cut through to the intercept term on the horizontal axis. And what is that answer? Where it cuts to? What's the unit? Well, you have your book, right? So look at it. I'm gonna ask Kiara. Yeah, look at your book, yes, I wanna make sure you understand. So look at the page. Okay, you got this page right here? Okay, I'm gonna ask you, when marginal revenue cut that horizontal axis, what is that number? Mr. Parker gave that answer a while ago. That's a hint for you. So what is that answer? Where the marginal revenue cut the? You look very stunned. Yeah, you're not understanding what's going on. So somebody else tell me what happened.
Oh, you was asking me?
No, I'm asking her, yeah. Yes, Sophia?
It's 4.
Very good, it's 4. Okay, so 4 is the unit. So that was the answer that Mr. Parker gave a while ago when I say if you were to draw down that line cutting it, so it will be half of 8, which is 4, and there it is. Why is that so important? Because that basically says that marginal revenue is twice the size of that. Now, I'll tell you why it is important, so let's look at one on the page because we actually asked you one of these questions. So where that page is, the next page on top, everybody see that right here? So that top line. So somebody read off that equation for me. On that top line, there were 2 equations embedded in that text. Tell me what that is. Kiara, you want to read it to me? That's a very simple thing. Just go ahead and read off that equation for me. P equals to?
P equals A minus B
Very good. A minus B, Q. What's the other one?
marginal revenue equals A minus 2B Q.
Very good, thank you. We will ask a question like that on your test. Okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna say, you see these 2 equations right there, I'm gonna substitute it with 8 and 8. I'm going to substitute this with, say, half. So I'm gonna ask you, what's going to be here? Because marginal revenue has twice the slope.
3.5.
Wouldn't it be
So what would this answer be?
1?
1.
You say 1 because 1 is half of, or 1 is twice of half. Got it? So it is 1. Let me change the number. So if it is 2, what would this number be?
4.
4.
Very good. If it is 3, what would this number be?
6.
Very good. You got it. So that's what it means. Marginal revenue has twice the slope of the price line or your demand curve. Yes, Sophia?
My only question is we had total revenue, we had the second total revenue. What would be considered the first total revenue? Would it be just 8 and 8 or like on the?
What do you mean first total revenue?
Like whenever we were doing the marginal revenue equals total revenue 1 minus total revenue.
Yeah, are you referring to the book or are you referring to just in general?
Just in general, like how would you, what is it on the graph?
Since you asked, so this is a more complicated process. This is P times Q, so that's when you take your ECN 3010. So P, put that whole thing in. You substitute the whole thing in and then multiply by Q, and then you have, the total revenue is not shown here, okay? So it was on this one right here. So were you asking about if it is 1?
I'm asking what would be total revenue 1?
If it is 1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it'll be right here, probably 7. But what it is what we're doing here is we're taking this, I do not know what is the slope, I think you could figure it out. The slope is 1, yeah, 8 divided by 8. So that would be 1, and your intercept term is 8. So then, so this 1 cube. So this would be 2 cubes. Right. And that's not the same as the intercept term, please. That's just a slope. Okay, all that they're saying is marginal revenue has twice the slope of the price line or demand curve. So here it is. One more time we re-emphasize that. This is in general. So we cut through and you see a little bit more here. So if this is Q now, this would be half of it. So if this is like 100, what would this number be? 50. Is everybody with me? 50. If this is 25, this will be 12 and a half, okay? And plus, when you draw this line up and like that, and that's half, that's your midpoint. So this will be 8, this will be 4. Okay, so the vertical intercept A is the same for marginal revenue and demand curve. They share the same point right there. The horizontal intercept for marginal revenue, which is right here, is 1/2 the demand intercept. So that's what we just said. And then I demonstrated that for you earlier. Marginal revenue has twice the slope of the demand curve. So this is just very principle level we tell you, but when you go to ECN 3010, you start using calculus to prove that. But now, this is all that you need to know. Okay, so there's one other thing, that is, we do have to talk about this profit maximizing rule. What is the goal for all the firms is to maximize profit, and remember this is criterion, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. If you see that there's a discrepancy, like marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, then you say you have to produce more. And if it is the other way, your cost is actually higher than revenue, then you have to cut down the number of production. Okay, the profit is maximized at the level of output for which MR equals to MC, very important. So a monopoly will set the price of the demand curve that is profit maximizing output. So I'm gonna go on to the graph because everything is in the graph here. Okay, so look at this graph here. This is a demand curve, this is a marginal cost. This is a case of a perfect competition when you have a market. Okay, I want you to pay attention. Tell me what is the price, what is the quantity. The price here is 3, the quantity is 12. Next, I want to superimpose monopoly situation into here by throwing in a marginal revenue curve, the yellow line, and this demand curve, which is a monopoly demand curve, is also the perfect competition demand curve. I'm superimposing the two graphs together now. Okay, so this is both perfect competition and monopoly. And I want to show a very important point. In fact, this is it. If you get this point here, you got the whole chapter. The gist is here. Okay, so now, again, go back to, we want to ask the question, so where is the profit maximizing quantity and price for monopoly? So the first thing that you do, write this down, this is so important. So the first thing you do, you write down the step. So the steps is, first of all, you look for MR equals to MC criterion. So your marginal revenue is right here, yellow line. The marginal cost is the red line. Everybody got it? So where the red line intersect with the yellow line is this line here, right? So then you say 8 is the quantity produced by the monopoly. But what about the price? What does the monopoly charge? It's not this. The price is up here because that's your demand curve, which is also your price line. Monopoly charge a price. And monopoly's quantity, M stands for monopoly, is 8. And let's compare the two, perfect competition price, which was right here, P equals to MC. Here's your price line and your MC is right here. So perfect competition would charge you only $3. Monopoly charge you higher price. And perfect competition's quantity, how much do they give you?
Well,
Very good, 12, which is right here. So that causes us to come to this conclusion. There are two strategies, please write this down, used by monopoly. This is very important. I will ask you that next time. Number one is restrict output. They're not gonna give you so much, but they will raise the price. Indeed so. Look at monopolies, they will charge $4 instead of 3, and then they will restrict the output, they give you 8, stingy, instead of 12. So everybody, one more time. So when you look at a perfect competition, right, you look at where price line cut marginal cost, which is right here, That's a perfect competition case where you have 12 and 3 as the price. But for monopoly, you look at MI equals to MC. MC cuts MI here. That's your quantity 8 produced by monopoly. But the price is not this, okay? Is the price line is up here. It's 4. So this distance right here, this is the gist of everything you study for this whole chapter. The difference between price and marginal cost is the market power that monopoly has. That's probably the most important part. Okay, everybody, I'll see you on Thursday with that paper, so remember it. And if you have any paper you want me